Hello, everyone. Casey Kendall. Welcome to Casey's Corner, brought to you by Prosperity North Advisors out of the 1010 Studios in Gilbert, Arizona. Joining me today, Tyler Vasquez from Birdgang Travel. Thank you very much for being here, Tyler.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped.
Okay, so I've been. You're probably the most famous person I've ever had in here. And when I say famous,
Wait a minute. We're gonna up that a little bit. I'll give you some phone numbers.
So when I say famous, it's more like by proxy of famousness.
Okay. All right.
But then also by like you have intentionally been on the big screen at State Farm Stadium.
Okay.
Versus my kid going like
waving
this,
around,
who got on it by chance.
Yeah, I've done that as well. I've done the waving around to get on camera. But.
Okay, so I've been looking forward to this. I saw you at the red and white practice. We've known each other for a few years now. But tell us, what is Birdgang Travel?
So Birdgang Travel is basically anyone that's a Cardinal fan that wants to go on a road game and get the road game experience, as I call it. So there's a big difference between home game experience or road game experience.
Sure.
It's a little more intimate on the road in terms of interaction, maybe with the players, coaches, and even just other fans, right? Because when you go to a home game, there's 20, 30, 40,000 Cardinal fans there at a given game, depending on, how well the team's playing.
Sure.
Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's more visiting fans, sometimes there's less visiting fans. So when you go on the road, obviously you're dealing with that home team's huge fan base.
Sure.
But you're going to have a smaller niche of fans, and not that they're more diehard than any other fan, but it is people that are spending some money to get on a flight, book a hotel, and go sometimes across the country. Sometimes it's, a little bit closer, whatever. And when I talk about kind of that intimate level, like you'll see players. I was walking in Pittsburgh last year to go get some food, and I ran into a bunch of the players just walking downtown.
That's
and
awesome.
you took a photo with them, right? And you'll see, when you go to the game itself, because there's only a couple, I would say it's probably less than a couple thousand that are at away games. If you're at the game in the pregame and you go up to the front, right, when they're warming up, players come over, they say hey, they sign stuff for you, they throw out their gloves, their towels, whatever, and then post game, same thing. Like
That's
you
awesome.
you get more of that interaction. Not that they don't do that at home, but you're fighting a lot more of people at home games versus on the road games. It's a much smaller audience that's clamoring for that attention, right?
I was when I was at the red and white practice and it finished.
The big mad rush to the front to get autographs.
I've got three boys, and they are all, we want to get down. We want to talk to Kyler Murray. We want to talk to, who's the new guy now? The wide receiver.
Marvin Harrison.
Marvin
Jr.
Harrison Jr. Oh, and I was like, good luck, boys. I'll be right here.
So the difference to that, just to put in perspective, is you can control that kind of environment for road games. Like you can figure out, okay, what tunnel do the players come out? It sounds like stalking, but
Sure.
you figure out what tunnel does the team come out, and then you try to get a close row, like in tickets wise, right? You go to buy tickets. And then here's the next caveat that people don't think about. Most teams in the NFL, or actually all teams do this, when they figure out what prices tickets go on sale for, they quantify the teams by 5 categories. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. The Arizona Cardinals, because there isn't a huge traveling fan base and there's not a huge amount of fans in every city. Like if you think about the Dallas Cowboys, there's fans for the Cowboys in every state. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
I went to New Orleans one time, and it was just a total random trip with my wife and I.
Yep.
And the Cowboys were playing the Saints, and we were on Bourbon Street, and every 45 seconds someone would say, how about them? And then the entire street would say, them Cowboys. And it was like, I've never hated a team more. Go ahead.
But in this example, the Cardinals always fall as a tier 5. And I'll tell you, people are like, oh, that's ridiculous. Why? Why are, that's offensive to the Cardinals. Okay, here's the thing. Until the Cardinals win season after season and keep making the playoffs, kind of like what the Chiefs have done over the last 10 years. Not to say they'll be the Chiefs and win a bunch of championships, but just saying being that team that can be in the playoffs for 3 out of 4 seasons, 4 out of 5 seasons, get some success. You don't necessarily have to win it all. That'd be great. I would love for them to win it all. But once they get some success, well, then they build a fan base. You get those kids that see a Kyler Murray. Like, let's be real. How many kids were like, oh, I love the Chiefs before Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
Or even I love the Baltimore Ravens before Lamar Jackson.
Right.
You see their dynamic play. Then you see them winning.
Everybody loves a winner.
Yeah, and it creates that fan base from beneath, right? Like, I used to run youth sports leagues. And the idea was, how do you get your teenage leagues to be bigger? You don't go out and try to find teenagers. You do. That's part of it. You go hunt that. But it's like you really got to start when they first, the youngest division, the 5 and 6 year olds. The more 5 and 6 year olds you get, they're going to keep phasing up. And in a couple of years, now your teenage league's going to be really big. It's the same thing with building a fan base, right? Like, you're not going to convert older people for the most part, right? They have their allegiances. So you're not going to convert an older fan to now all of a sudden, oh, because you won a couple games, oh, well, I'm going to leave I root for the Cowboys and I'm going to go now root for the Cardinals. You really got to start. And I think back to 2008 when the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl with Kurt Warner. I remember around town, all the fans that were in, you would see everyone wearing Cardinal shirts, right? And you would see billboards and all kinds of stuff. That winning it was then cool to wear Cardinals gear versus when I grew up in the 90s, Cardinals weren't very good and it wasn't cool to wear Cardinals gear. So that's what it will take and everything else. But so going back to the tier 5 thing, because we're tier 5, the Cardinal tickets are generally cheaper on the Cardinal side of the stadium, on a road game. So now you can kind of dictate for what you would probably pay for a home game, maybe a little bit more. You can get better game tickets on a road game. Now your overall trip's going to be more expensive because you got hotels, airfare, all that. But you can really dictate where you sit. So now you bring your 3 boys, you can now be like, oh, we're in the front row right by the tunnel. Now 3 little kids wearing Cardinal stuff. Hey, Marvin. Hey, Kyler. When they walk past, they're probably going to stop. You know what I mean? It's just way more likely versus the cattle call that is the red and white scrimmage.
Right.
Great time. The red and white scrimmage is a lot of fun, but you got to get there early. You got to get right up to the front area. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more planning to that where
I kind of think of it as like, at one point I heard the best season tickets to have for the NBA was like the Clippers because everybody was going to eventually come through town.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
So how did you get started with travel? And I mean, it's a phenomenal idea. There's some diehard Cardinals fans out there. I mean, every team's got those diehards. But how did you get started in traveling with the team?
Yeah, so it started back in 2015, a little bit before that, even in 2014, 2013. I think I did my first trip. It was to, my first trip was Cardinals Jets. It was, I wanted to go to New York. I'd never been to New York. Funny, the whole reason I wanted to go to New York was I loved Home Alone as a kid.
Okay.
And so I was like, New York, it's big. Like, that's just what the bright lights, all the cool stuff, right? And so I really wanted to go to New York. And the Cardinals were playing the Jets. I was of an age that I could now take flights on my own. I was an adult, and a young adult. I was in my young 20s at the time. And I convinced my brother, I want to say it was his 21st birthday, so I must have been 26. But it was his 21st birthday that weekend. I convinced him and one of my best friends, and we booked a flight. We went to New York and enjoyed the Cardinals Jets, and it was probably one of the worst football games in history. It was like 7-6. It was terrible. A bunch of backups ended up playing. It was so bad. But it was a fun weekend in New York. And I was like, man, this is really cool. And so going from there of just going with my brother, then I ended up going with some guys that I tailgate with to the next year. We went back to I think we went back to New York, Cardinals Giants, and then the following year we did Cardinals Bears, or I maybe flipped those two. I think that is right, actually. I think the Bears, which was probably like 2015, that was when Bruce Arians was in place. The team started playing really well, and you started to see more and more fans starting to travel. And I was in a bunch of Cardinals like Facebook groups and fan forum, like the old like web chat forum type things, where you'd put like a topic and everyone would comment or whatever. Yeah. I'm in one of those. I'm still in it. I check on it every, once a week or whatever. But people would say, "Hey, are you going to Chicago this weekend?" And I would see people reply like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be there." And then someone would be like, "Oh, we're going to meet at this bar." And there's one bar in particular called Mother Hubbard's, and complete dive bar. It's honestly gross. It's a cool environment, got a lot of history, a little niche, but
Totally gross. 3.5 stars.
yeah. But it's cool. It's got a charm because of how gross it is, I guess. But yeah, so a bunch of people are like, "Let's meet here." And then I'm seeing, "Hey, I was there at noon today. I didn't see anybody. Oh, hey, I was there at 6 p.m. Oh, hey, I was there at 9 p.m. It started looking like, I always kind of joke and say, it was like a Craigslist misconnections like forum,
Only
right?
we had someone to bring this all together.
So that was my moment, right? And so the Cardinals ended up getting to the NFC Championship that year.
Nice.
They ended up playing the Carolina Panthers, and again, which was a terrible game.
I think I remember that game.
They got blown.
Yeah, it was like 31-3 or something.
Yeah, it was bad. What could go wrong went wrong. And
Carson Palmer was the quarterback.
Yep. It was a very bad game. I think Patrick Peterson tried to run one back off a kickoff or a punt return, and I think he fumbled. I mean, the game was just, and that was like pressing right before I think halftime just to try to get something going, and it just, anything that could go wrong went wrong. That was all memory. That could be way wrong, but I remember something like that happened. I've been to a lot of games over my time, so
Fair enough.
trying to remember every element from 10 plus years ago becomes tough. But anyway, we are gonna go to Carolina. A lot of fans are excited because it's one step away from the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And me and a guy I knew, Eric, at the time. Eric would do this like YouTube show, and I will give Eric a little bit of credit. I think he was before his time, in the sense of now you see all these podcasts and Cardinal-centric YouTube shows, and now it's all in one, right? You have if you record a show, kind of like we're doing today, you then can strip the audio. You can have a podcast. You can have, you have many ways of distribution, right?
Absolutely.
He had like solely a YouTube show back then, and his biggest show got like 100 or something views. So nothing crazy, right? Nothing to like what you see now with, I know Mr. Beast is like the mecca, but you see people that do millions of views, hundreds of thousands, right? So nothing that would get him to quit his day job and do that full time, right? So he was doing that, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, he gets fans that are like diehards to come on his show, and it was just a cool experience. He was like a voice of the fan, which I really enjoyed. So I reached out to him. Actually, I take that back. I'm telling the story a little bit wrong. He actually posted earlier in that season, right before, this is before the NFC Championship game, that it was Halloween weekend and they were playing in Cleveland. And he goes, "I have an extra ticket, and you could crash in my my hotel room for any fan that wants to pay for a flight." I had a bunch of air miles, and I was like, "I can go to Cleveland. I'm 20 something years old,
Sure.
28, 29, whatever." I'm like, not married, no kids. I'm like, "Sure." And I hit him up. Really weird. Like, hey, stranger, let me crash in your room with you.
We're gonna go butt to butt.
Yeah, exactly. I ended up sleeping on the floor, which was a fun time. But yeah, so I ended up going with him to that, met him there. But then fast forward to that MC Championship game, a lot of fans wanted to go, and ended up being like the blizzard from all blizzards or whatever in the East Coast, and ultimately like people had nightmare of travel to get to this game. So we ended up planning a like pep rally at a bar the night before the game, appropriately called Fitzgerald's. It was an Irish bar.
Nice.
And we're like, oh, this is fitting. Luck of the Irish, Fitzgerald's. This
Absolutely.
is going to be great. 500 cars. They didn't have no clue what was coming their way. It was right across the street from the Charlotte Hornets stadium or arena. And they had a basketball game, I remember. And so we ended up throwing our party. There's 500 Cardinal fans there. So the basketball game gets out, and all these Hornet fans are trying to come in, and they can't get into this bar. And
It was a Birdgang takeover.
it was, basically the first original Birdgang takeover of a bar.
Was in
And
Charlotte.
was in Charlotte in 2015. And ultimately, what was really cool about it was word got around. Michael Bidwell, the owner of the team, came by. Adrian Wilson, who was a high exec in the company at the time, he ended up coming by. Former player, legendary player with the team. They both get on the mic. They thank the fans for making the commute through the tough weather. All the fans were pumped to take pictures with them, have a beer. Like it was a really cool experience. From that moment, I was like, we've got something. And I'd actually traveled to Philly either a season or two before, and I met a guy there that is an Eagles fan that put on home tailgates, but he also did road packages for the Eagles fans. So when I started to see that and I started looking around the league, I started seeing, oh, Carolina has a cool group. I'm trying to think who else at the time was established. Carolina, Philly, the Commanders, I think, had something at the time. The Packers. There's some teams that had similar to what I was thinking of starting. So I remember we got blown out in the NFC Championship, and I was literally sitting in a bar with my best friend that I originally went to New York with a couple of years prior. And I'm sitting there, and it just hit me. I said, Birdgang Travel Club. I go, that's what we'll call it.
Yeah.
And I opened up my laptop, and he's like, what? What's going on? And I literally open up my laptop. I go to Facebook. I sign up the name. I go to Instagram. I sign up the name. I go to, I didn't go to YouTube yet. I went and registered a domain on GoDaddy. And I had my cousin whip up a logo, and the original iteration of the logo, I think he used a copyrighted bird. And so I put that out within a couple of weeks. I ended up having a designer make a what would become our
Michael Bidwell was like, hey, remember that time in Charlotte?
Yeah, no. And it wasn't one for the Cardinals. It was a
okay.
copyrighted bird from someone else
Got
used
it.
a cardinal bird. It was like a cartoonish bird.
Sure.
So we ended up actually have a tattoo of it, and I don't know if we'll be able to get there or not. But this was the original logo. We just actually rebranded and did a new logo over the past couple of weeks or past couple of months. So, I whipped that up, and then I did a Facebook post, and I don't know if I deleted this post because I tried to check for it in January when you go to your Facebook history, but it had 900 likes, a bunch of comments, all these fans. I'm like, who would, if we put together a package, let's say next year in Miami, because you kind of can see who the Cardinals are playing each year, in advance, right? That's all kind of pre-scheduled for the most part. And I said, next year, Miami looks like a cool trip. If we put together a package, who would be interested? And that's when we got all the comments and the likes. And I was like, okay, between the success last night, this interaction on social, I think we're on to something. So then the formation of this, now it's like, okay, let's get this into action, right?
So are you going to every away game?
No. So we picked... The first year we did one. We just did Miami, right? And then from there on, we then decided, okay, that was not too difficult. But the first trip, it was crazy. We ended up having 500 people sign up.
Wow.
And we ended up taking over a hotel, 2 properties, right? 2 properties next door in South Beach. We ended up... I want to say we had 350 in book packages, but then we sell a la carte tickets only to special events in the package. We ended up getting over 550 or so in the tailgate. So it was just crazy. The whole tailgate, it's in the Dolphins parking lot, and it's just a sea of red in our area. And so the Dolphins fans are all pissed. They're like, what the heck is going... Because they don't expect it from Cardinal fans.
What in the heck? What in the 1972 is going on around here?
Yeah. Because they're not expecting... Like you were saying earlier, Cowboys.
Right.
There's certain teams you expect that from.
Absolutely.
The Cowboys travel well. The Niners travel well. And not to say
Packers.
I'm proud of to get 500 fans together on the road. That's really cool. But in the real scheme of things, it's nothing to the Cowboys, the Packers.
Right.
Now, we have an organized contingency. They may not be as organized. It may just be you're just seeing Cowboys stuff everywhere.
Guys,
right? Yeah, you're just seeing people spread out. So, but there's a lot of room. We've seen the Carolina Panthers, similar fan base to us. They started about 4 years earlier. They have on their bigger trips about double what we have. And we're like, there's nothing about Carolina that is more special than what we could do either. To me... We could easily be at 800 to 1,000 fans together on the road.
Okay, so now my brain is turning here. So this is really cool experience, right?
Yeah.
So, and I appreciate you sharing how you got started and where it started and how it's evolved. So talk to us about what a package includes. You say you don't go to every game. Are you picking out 2, 3 by city, by popularity, those types of things?
Yeah, so we do generally we look at the layout of teams, right? And so this year we looked at who was on the schedule, right? And these in advance, like I was saying, but there's depending on where you finish the season prior, there is 2 games a year that you don't know yet. You don't know who it is. You know the division, but you don't know which team, because it has to be the team that finishes the same as you. So you have kind of an idea. So you look at this, we wait till the season's over so we know. And then we look at that and we say, okay, pending what the dates are, because then that's the next key cog to this. Because if a game falls on Christmas Day, probably not going to travel on Christmas Day because the demand's just not going to be there. People aren't going to desert their kids and things like that. And these experiences really are... maybe, yeah. These experiences are really, that's another big thing to kind of talk about. These are really adult-more-ish experiences because a lot of the events we do are going to be in like bars and they're at night, and it's just tough. You know, venues aren't going to want to deal with it.
You got little Timmy here, like, it's hey, stop doing shots. You're spilling tequila on my kid's head.
100%. So now we do get like reserved spaces in all these spots and all that, but we try to accommodate if someone does want to bring a kid, but we do say up front, we may not be able to get them into every event, right? So, but going back to your initial question, we kind of look at that schedule and we map out which ones popularity-wise as like a vacation destination. Vacation destination's always first because that's what these have kind of become. They become mini vacations for people that may not ever plan to go somewhere. I never planned to go to New York, you know what I mean? But this was an excuse to have activities when I go to New York, right? If you're going to spend this money to go there, like you want to have stuff to do.
Yeah.
So it's the same concept here. So when we look at a schedule, okay, Miami, good, we're going. Nashville, good, we're going.
But not like Wisconsin in
So I'll get to that.
December. Okay,
so
go ahead.
I'll get to that. So start out with the vacation cities. Then we look at lineage, right, and history and the nostalgia and all of that, right? The aura of a team or their stadium. So that gets you to your, like you were saying, your Green Bay, your Pittsburgh. You know, you get some of those teams that are just known as being, I want to experience Lambeau, right? Or I want to experience Soldier Field.
I have a different question for that too.
Okay. Well, so then the third step we go to is basically, have we ever been there before or not, right? And so this year when we looked at the schedule, and also where it falls on the schedule can impact that as well, right? So we don't make the actual decision, like the final, this is where we're going until the schedule gets released, which is like early May, right? So the draft comes at the end of April. They now roll the schedule out a couple weeks after. So that schedule comes out. We have an idea of what we're targeting. And once we see that, we look, okay, what's falling on Thanksgiving? What's falling on Christmas? Those are out. New Year's we did New Year's in Dallas a couple seasons because we're like, New Year's, adults like to go out and do stuff. Absolutely. This could be fun, right? And so if it's a cool enough city, we would do New Year's. But so we look at it. This year we saw on the schedule, we knew we'd never done Buffalo. And Buffalo is recently over the last decade or so become really known for their tailgates and their fans jumping through tables and craziness, right? So it's like, I kind of want to see. It's like a car crash, right? You want to go see it. You may not want to be the one that jumps through a table, but you do want to go and get that experience in, right? So
Buffalo is like my DraftKings nemesis.
Oh yeah, they kill you every time.
Oh my gosh.
So we identified Buffalo. Another one on the schedule was Green Bay, which we've done before, but the nostalgia factor and the aura. And then we had Miami again, which we'd done before. Miami was our first ever trip in 2016. So we're now 8 years apart. So that's the other key. On teams that aren't in your division, you play them every 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So on the road. So every 4 year, you'll play them. You play them every 4 years. One at home and then one on the road, right? 4 years, and then the next 4 years will be on the road. First 4 years at home, next 4 years on the road, right?
Got it.
So every 8 years, you'll play them at least once at their stadium. Okay. That's what I meant to say. There are other ways they can fall on your schedule, but I'm saying like strategically planned out by division, you will play every team once in an 8-year period at their stadium. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So we are now hitting 8 years. So 8 years ago, we went to Miami. 9 years ago, we went to Green Bay, but because of finishes and stuff like that, Green Bay is on our schedule this year. I think they fall on our schedule again next year or something, or the year after, because that'll be 8 years from when we went the last time. So they're going to pop up on our schedule again here pretty soon. But like New Orleans, we did that, I think our second or third year, like they're coming up. Like all the trips we had done before, we're going to get another go at them. So this year when we identified Miami, we're like, okay, Miami was our biggest initial trip. We had a trip that was bigger after that, but it was our biggest initial trip, but there's a lot we learned from that trip. It was the first time we'd ever done it. Yeah. So like this will be cool to go back and do it again with what we've now learned after 8 years of doing these, right? Green Bay, to go back to your point about the snow in December, do you avoid that? So back in I think it was 2020. I think that was the year. So 2028 is when we'll get them again. But oh no, 2020 was COVID. I'm sorry. It was 2018. We went to Green Bay. So we'll get them again in 2026. But so what we did that year was they fell on it was a blizzard game. It was in December. It was the first week of December. And we knew it on the schedule. We're like, we might get snow.
Yeah.
But it was like, on that year of the schedule, it was like Green Bay and Kansas City, and Mahomes wasn't playing yet. So it was like, this may be like these are probably our best 2 trips. There just wasn't really good cities.
Sure.
We're like Green Bay because of the lineage. There was no vacation city, so that was out. So then we decided to do Green Bay. We're like, oh, Green Bay is going to be tough because it's in December. But we're like, screw it.
That's kind of the experience.
Yeah,
though.
that was my opinion. And so, do we get a lot of people that were like, I ain't going to Green Bay in December? Yeah, of course. But then you got a lot of people who are same thing you and I are thinking, like, I go to 8 home games in Arizona where it's hot.
Right.
Like, why not go to 1 game? And if it snows, it snows. Like, I've never been in that.
But
right?
like that whole that experience, like you walk into a place like Lambeau Field,
yeah,
and you're sitting there in this. That's football. That is football
100%.
in its purest sense.
Yeah. I've sat in a couple snow games. I sat in Charlotte for the Panthers. That was a snow game. That was the NFC Championship game. Sat in that one. The Bears, a couple years ago, it was snowing in December. It was the first week of December. And then the Packers. The Packers was the worst one. It was literally like blizzard time, like crazy.
Where they have to dig out the lines so the players could see.
It was pretty bad.
Okay.
And it was cold.
Okay, so a few questions. So one, Arizona is I don't even know if I'm saying this right, but like a transient state, right? And so you had mentioned like a lot of times if you get a big enough team in there, I mean it may seem like an away game for the Cardinals, right? And you'll see billboards around that say, protect the nest, don't sell your tickets, that type of stuff. But do you have people, if they're like, if you plan a trip to Pittsburgh and they're like, I live here in Arizona, but I want to go to Pittsburgh and experience that, is that a possibility? And is it like shut your mouth about that terrible towel?
Wait, say it one more time.
I guess in the sense of like, could if you've got a trip planned, to Pittsburgh, could a Steelers fan go through?
Yeah. So the beauty of our packages, and we'll go over what's in the packages in a minute.
And that was my follow-up question: is what activities are centered around it? What does it include?
Yeah, 100%. So the beauty of this is it really stemmed. I mean, the essence of the idea really stemmed from I went to Oakland in my little stretch.
Raiders.
I went to Oakland with a buddy, and this was during my little stretch before we started Birdgang travel, and I will say, it's the only time. There's been a couple times where I'm like, ooh, this is kind of sketchy. Oakland was the only time I was genuinely a little bit fearful of like something's gonna happen. Like they were angry and mean, and like if you wore the other color, they did not like it. I mean, it was. I had a guy sit in front of me. I didn't talk to him at all. He started eating his peanuts and throwing his shells purposely behind him onto me. And like just instigating. And then anytime they made a play, he's turn around in my face. Like he was trying to he wanted to fight.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, this is, and I genuinely like, if you'll ever see me at a road game, I'm the nicest at any game. I don't talk. I'm
not going to pink jail for anyone.
Well, yeah, I don't chirp at anyone. Right. And so the essence of the idea really stemmed from, okay, let's not put people in that position again to where, you can. I mean, you can go on your own and do that. But in this format, when we talk about like what's in a package, right, and who can go, to your initial question, we tell anyone to invite whoever they want, right? Like if I always make it kind of funny and I say, if you have someone that's confused in your family or a friend or a spouse, or significant other, that they're confused about their fandom and they are rooting for the home team and they would like to attend, they are more than welcome to book a package with you. So we always will have, when we did Green Bay, we had a family of like 10 book a package, and 3 or 4 of them were in Packers gear. But they always say football is family and that whole deal, right? And it generally is. And we want that to be like, do we want it to be all Cardinal fans? Of course. But like, listen, if your brother or your husband or your wife or whoever is a fan of another team, like who cares? Like, it's not that serious. Like, they're going to come to all Cardinal events and they're going to see it's all Cardinal centric. Okay. So that's one. Two, who else can come? Do they have to be in Arizona? No. We get fans that book in every state, every country. Like, we have different countries that fans come from. We've had people from the German Birdgang come with us. The Spanish Birdgang or Spain Birdgang.
Birdgang.
Yeah. We've had guys in England, the British Birdgang come. Like, so, and then we get fans, like I said, all around the country, like different states. It's funny when we do our, I make a spreadsheet of everyone that books a trip and see all the different, a lot of Arizona, but you'll see like, oh, this person's in Vegas, this person's in Connecticut. Like, it's all over. It's crazy where all the fans come from. So then we get into what's in the package, right? And so the initial package just started off, let's just have events. And so we started out with just a Friday party, a Saturday party, a Sunday tailgate, your game tickets, and your hotel, right? And that has now evolved over 8 years to, we wanted to include things that create loyalty and also just stuff that you can't necessarily get on your own, right? So we try to find some experience type stuff. The biggest experience is like, oh, you're in a hotel room of all Cardinal fans.
Yeah,
not gonna
you can walk
typically
down
find
to the bar,
that, right?
and,
You so now we've been getting really intentional. So we talk about, I'll talk about the parties first. Friday night party is generally we try to do a boat if there's a body of water, and we'll do like an open bar on a boat for a couple hours with like a DJ or just music, depending on what the boat could do. Then Saturday, we have now instituted, we started seeing early on that people would go on like tours, either stadium tours or tours of famous things in those cities, right? So in New Orleans, it was the graveyard tours. Everyone wanted to do a graveyard tour.
Yeah.
So now we've evolved to, well, hey, like we see all these Cardinal fans going on their own. Like, how cool would it be just to have all of us together on said tour? So what we look at is, does the stadium do a tour? If they do, that'll be the tour we do. If they don't do a tour, is there something in that city that we can add in that is cool, like the graveyard tours? So, for example, in Buffalo this year, we're not doing a stadium tour. One, they're tearing that stadium down and they're not doing tours. But two, Niagara Falls is right there. So we're going to do a 4-hour tour of Niagara Falls.
Very cool.
So we're going to take a bus up there. It's like 30, 40 minutes away from where we're staying, and it'll be like an all-day thing during Saturday. In Green Bay, we're doing a tour of Lambeau. So then you get to go through the locker room. You get to see their Hall of Fame setup they have. You get to see all the history of Lambeau, which is pretty cool. So that's Saturday during the day. Saturday night, we do what's called our pep rally party. So we try to create kind of this high energy vibe. This year, we're going to try to institute some cool elements that have not been there before. Like, we've had DJs and stuff, but we're going to try to make it feel more pep rally this year for some of the bigger trips. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't like giving away all the...
Fair enough.
I like for it to get taken photos and video on social and then get shared out and people are like, wait, what?
This also seems like something where you got to pace yourself a little bit.
You do, because, okay, so Friday night is open bar, right? Saturday, same thing. That pep rally, it's open bar, buffet. Sunday tailgate, open bar, buffet. And then your game tickets, lower level. So we've never put anyone... The only time we've had upper level, actually, was we made it a choice. It was in the Mexico City game. So we've done games in now London and Mexico City.
International.
Yeah, we've done international.
Wow.
So the cost for Mexico City game tickets was ridiculous because they only get one game every once in a blue moon. So we had to create like a baseline for the package. Like, here, if you pay this much, your seats are going to be in this section. If we can get you better, we will. Like this level, not section. So in Mexico, it was like 5 levels. So in our stadium, it's like the 100s, the 200s, the 400s.
Yep.
That stadium, it was like the 100s, the 200s, 300s, 400s, 500s. So it was like, oh, your seats in the initial package are in the 500 or 400 level, depending on what we can get. We'll try to put you in the best space.
Yep.
If you want tickets in the 300, they're an extra $50. And the 200, it was an extra, I don't know, $100, $150. If you want the 100, it's an extra $200, $250, whatever. Per person. And so then we had people like upgrade and we were able to get them in the lower bowl. But generally speaking, in normal circumstances, every other trip we've ever done, We've had people in the 100 level. This year, something I'm very prideful about is in Miami, everybody's in the first 5 rows.
Wow.
So, we're on the Cardinal side, but the first 5 rows, we're not in the end zone generally. Some people may go in the end zone. Like we had an opportunity for Miami. There was a group of 8 traveling with us, and there's row 1 in the end zone. And it's kind of like right next to the Cardinals tunnel. And I was like, although you're in the end zone, I don't prefer sitting in the end zone because when they're on the opposite side of the field, they're very far away.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, to sit row 1 and also be there when they're coming out, that'd be kind of cool. So we asked this group, hey, we have an option to get these 8 tickets. Do you want them? And if they don't, I was going to ask like other groups down the list.
Sure.
They were like, yeah, let's do it. So we do that. But generally this year, what we did was Miami's first 5 rows, Buffalo's first 5 rows, Green Bay, because of the demand from the Green Bay fans themselves, we were able to get first 10 rows. So still great. In the past, we've had people in like row 15, row 20. Again, lower level, great seats. But this year it was really planning on, can we get people even, like, let's get them even closer to the action, right? Let's get them really close. The other thing I was really intentional about this year was I tried to buy as many tickets within 1 section or 2 sections. In the past, it became, let's just get the best seats anywhere on the Cardinal sideline, because I think people would value like, oh, if I could sit in row 2, even though it's just me and my significant other, it's still better than maybe being in row 16. But because we were getting such close rows and I had that ability to do it all within a section or 2, I was like, oh, this checks off both. They're going to get a really good row and we're all going to be together.
Yeah.
So it's going to be kind of cool on TV, hopefully, as you're going to see 100 or so Cardinal fans all in red in 1 section. You know what I mean?
I've seen on your social media a lot of player interaction, whether that's like autographs and you had mentioned, them coming out and hey, thanks, and stopping by the tunnel and stuff like that. Have you ever been like starstruck? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm interacting with this person.
I can't say no, because I don't really have long conversations with them. I feel like after a long amount of time, I'd probably be like, oh, I'd probably get that way. But I also worked in radio for like 10 years. So we did interviews with artists and stuff all the time. So that kind of stuff isn't too crazy. But, I also haven't had long enough interactions with them to really be like, really, it's usually like, hey, let's take a photo, or just, hey, I hope you have a great game. It's stuff pretty short. But when we do a signing with players, so that was the next part. So adding in the other elements now. So we have those events I talked about. You talked about signed merchandise. So we partner with the player every year, and they will sign items for anyone that books a package by a certain deadline date. That helps us get an idea of what our numbers are going to look like. So when we book venues and hotels, it just helps the planning stage, but also it gives something a little extra for people signing up and joining us really, early in the process. So this year we partnered up with Paris Johnson Jr., who was our first round pick last season.
Nice.
The season before we partnered with Zaven Collins, who was a first round pick a couple of years ago. The year before that, we partnered with Trey McBride, who's like our budding phenom at tight end. So it was pretty cool because that year everyone got a signed Trey McBride item. It was the year he was drafted, and people are like, okay, this guy, all right, I don't really know who he is.
Who?
You fast forward a year later and even 2 years later now, and it's like Trey McBride's like one of our best players. And now anyone that went on those trips has a signed Trey McBride helmet. So they get that. We do custom patches for the trips. So you'll see me at games wearing this cut off sleeve jacket over my jersey, and you'll see patches from every city I've been on. And I have so many people that stop me and they just like, can I look at your jacket? And they'll see all the patches. So, and now I've been seeing on road games that we go on, other fans creating jackets and having patches,
or like they've added them jacket.
Yeah, almost. Or they've added them to their travel bags, right? Their carry-ons. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. We've also added in a goodie for every trip. So that's usually either synonymous with the trip we're going on, or just something for your travel needs. So one year we did a neck pillow with our logo all over it. One year we did the stadium entry bags. When we went to Mexico City, we did passport holders. So like you need your passport to go,
absolutely.
International. So we're like, oh, that'd be cool. This year, I don't want to spoil them, but we have a pretty cool thing for those that have been on many trips. For those that are going to Buffalo and Green Bay, they're going to get a cool thing to document all the trips they've been on. I'll just leave it at that. And then in Miami, we have something that is synonymous with going to the beach or bodies of water. Like it'll be a cool item for those fans. So they get a gift like that. And then and then we do a collaboration with State 48, who's someone else you should get on this podcast.
Yes,
You should get Mike. We can make that introduction if you don't know Mike, but we can make that happen. But we team up with the great team at Mike with State 48, Mike and Chloe that handles all the collaborations over there. We appreciate her. But they and then their designers, they do a great job of doing a trip specific, almost like your band or concert T-shirt, right?
It's like a limited release.
Yeah. So we have one for Buffalo that just came out. It says Cards Mafia instead of Bills Mafia. Our Green Bay one, our original Green Bay one, theirs is Go Pack Go. We turned it into No Pack No. This year it actually is pretty funny. It's a cheese grater next to a block of cheese, and it just says "Say When." Like when you're at Olive Garden and they're doing the cheese grating.
I like it.
So that's our Green Bay shirt, and then Miami is more kind of like Miami Vice inspired type T-shirt this year. But so they'll get the shirts, and then you're talking about the player type stuff. We try to interact with. We've had a lot of players' families join us on trips, so
cool.
That's actually how we got in touch with Paris in DC last season. We got introduced to Paris Johnson's mom and his stepdad, and they go on a lot of road games, and we invited them on our boat party, and they went and they hung out with all the fans. And it's great when we get the families there, because then they also share like what it's like having a kid in the league with the fans.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think about, oh, this player, he just shows up here and it's like, oh, wow, he's an NFL player. Mm-hmm. But their journey from
being a kid in Pee-wee, right?
Pee-wee, Pop Warner, high school, and then college and going through and then ending up there. I think that's a phenomenal experience in its own.
Just think about like maybe where they grew up to now living in Arizona, right? Like what are the differences there, and learning about that from the family. Like, oh, have you ever been to Arizona before? Nope. We just had to move here a couple months ago because he got drafted here or whatever.
Yeah.
So, you get to hear pretty cool stories and things like that. That's a great experience getting to partner up with like the families. Getting player interactions a little hard in the sense of, other than like if you're up close at the game.
Sure.
Because it's a business trip for them, right? Like they're not necessarily
they got to be focused. And
they're not able to go and
that's
necessarily.
how they make their money.
They can't necessarily go to events, right, and participate. But we've had Michael Bidwell's came by taking pictures with fans, the owner of the team, and we had Steve Keim, the past GM, would come by and take pictures with fans. So you get a lot of the office people and all other recognizable faces will come by, but coaches and players generally on road games, not too much to be to bother.
So we got the cardiac carts.
Yeah.
Right. Are they committed to winning?
I think Michael Bidwell is much more committed to winning than the prior regime with his father. Okay. And now I was just growing up, so I just take what my dad would say and what I remember as a kid. And just the stories. I remember when Edgerrin James came to the team, and it was like, we don't even have Wi-Fi in the locker room. We don't have like. You have to pay for sodas out of the soda machine, and like there was all these like crazy stories.
Kind of like the movie Major League.
Yeah. It was like a bunch of crazy stories. And the sodas of the soda machine might be Major League, and I might be making that up, but it was like they had to pay for meals or something like that. It was something crazy. But once Michael got into place, and I really think the success of 2008. And them going to the Super Bowl pretty young, and Michael kind of took over right around those couple of years, like prior to that. And I think that early success in tasting what almost winning the whole thing is like. I think that really, not to say that he probably wasn't a competitive person before, like, but you always think you're like your parents, right? And then I think there's just some tendencies, and I don't want to make this a bad thing, like Michael's like his dad. No, I mean. It was what it was. The Cardinals were at ASU. It was a bad setup. Like, they wanted the state and everyone else to invest in the team, for them to really invest in the team, I guess. I was never in those meetings. I was too young. I don't know. But my point is now it does feel like the Cardinals have gone a complete 180. They spend a lot of money. I know right now it doesn't look like that. Like, they have got like $30 million to spend right now. But the difference between doing that this way now and doing this 20 years ago was the Cardinals, with their new regime of Coach Gannon and Monty Ossenfort, the GM, they are really invested in doing this the right way. And the right way being building through the draft.
Foundations.
Building foundationally, building with a young team, getting a strong core, and not going out there and just paying older guys that are just chasing a paycheck, or maybe they have injury history or things like that.
I think I saw a meme like 2 years ago that was like, Adrian Peterson, Larry Fitzgerald, and Carson Palmer. This is going to be the best 2005 ever.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that was for a long time. I mean, I think when we signed Terrell Suggs, about 10 years, 15 years too late, right?
Mm-hmm.
Valley guy, but he came to us, and it was like he literally stole money from the team because he didn't produce anything, right? And it was because he was in the twilight of his career. I think he only played one more season after that, or that might have been his last. I can't remember when he went to the Chiefs, if it was through trade or through free agency, but he only played a short time after.
I always feel like the one player that got away was Anquan Bolden.
That's a sore subject for me. Anquan Bolden will, as of today, is still my favorite Cardinal of all time.
Really?
I just loved his passion, his physicality. How he played the game. I just thought it was very polarizing.
Yeah.
Larry was great. Don't get me wrong. And a lot of people love Larry.
Anquan Bolden's just physical.
I just loved how physical.
Yeah.
When you think football,
right,
I think of Anquan Bolden,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Larry Fitzgerald, there was a lot of finesse. The high point catches. His game evolved. He did get to be a little more.
Very Lynn Swan-like.
He became a little more, shorter catches, like being in that slot role and then making, getting yards after the catch, doing things like that. But the Anquan style of play was just phenomenal. And I was very upset when we did lose him. Now, as the game's evolved, my stance on how we sign players and decide who we keep is a little different. I think spending a ton of money on quarterback, if they haven't, and this is no dig at Kyler Murray, I think we've done the right thing by Kyler. But I think you're now at this point of he now has to produce before we decide to give him another contract. Like, if he can't get you in the playoffs like a couple of times here, then you do need to move on, because you can't keep giving a ton of money to one position because it limits you everywhere else.
Right.
You're better off drafting a quarterback, starting over, and hoping they have quick success, like Joe Burrow or a Stroud in Houston. Russell Wilson in Seattle, like he had quick early success.
Yep.
So that way, by the time you paid him again, you'd already.
It was worth it.
It was worth it. You could then strip away some of the nuts and bolts. I look at other teams like when they pay, oh my gosh, like Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. He did get a playoff game, and they had a little playoff run, but they regressed last year. Now you just gave him a huge contract. I'm like, that one. I'm like, I look at Jordan Love in Green Bay. Like, yeah, they had a little bit of a run last year.
Who was the Vikings quarterback, and then he's at Washington Commanders now.
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins.
Or no.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, no. Now he's in Atlanta.
Oh, he's in Atlanta.
But he
now?
was in Washington.
That guy's like a certified billionaire.
He was in Washington. He went to Minnesota, then went to Atlanta.
He might be the smartest quarterback that's ever played the game.
He made a lot of money. He was really smart with how he did that. But again, like that's my point.
Is it worth it?
Is Kirk Cousins ever going to get you there? And there's been guys I've been wrong about, like Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford for a long time was like kind of treading water in Detroit. And it was like, man, you spent a lot of money. The other part to it was they couldn't get it right in the other areas around the team.
Sure.
So it wasn't necessarily Matt's fault. When you put him around a bunch of talent in LA, you won a championship. So that one's a little off.
Well, I think that the media really hyped that up. Well, I think Matt Stafford's very average.
Yeah, he's consistent. He's got a consistent arm. He can throw the deep ball. He'll put up a lot of yards. I mean, he's a very consistent thrower. But yeah, I mean, in Detroit, it wasn't working because he didn't have the weapons. You put him in LA, they had Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
You have Cooper Kupp. You had a lot of pieces. You had Odell. So you had a lot of pieces around him and they had a good run game at the time. So, but anyway, my point back to it is now as you see contracts changing, you talk about wide receivers now. Wide receivers, you see 3 guys right now holding out like for big money. Like they're saying Jamar Chase isn't going to play a game this year until he gets a new contract. Justin Jefferson just got a huge contract. You got CeeDee Lamb holding out, waiting for money. You've got Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco waiting for money. Like all these guys, like we're not playing until we get paid. And now the wide receiver contracts, they're not as bad as the QB contract, but they're now there's 1A and there's 1B. I mean, it's those contracts are really high. So when you're paying one or two guys 15% of your salary cap for a game that has 53 players on the roster, that's tough. I mean, you're giving a ton of your salary to two people. I get they're important positions, but you're better off. Like you look at the Cardinals right now. They drafted Marv. You've got Marv for probably 4 seasons where you got to pay him. You have to. I guarantee you have to pay him before the 5th year. He'll be just like CD and all these other guys that want to get paid before they go into the last season. But you'll get 4 years. So you get a 4-year sprint right now. And the rest of your team is on very manageable contracts. Like we only have a couple of bad contracts. Like after this year, James Conner and Budda Baker are like our worst contracts. And you're gonna have to decide what you're gonna do with them going forward. Can you get them on a favorable contract, or do you part ways? Which could happen.
James Conner was my dark horse in fantasy last year.
I love James Conner. He's very consistent. The problem is he's on the other side of 30, and once that starts happening, it becomes he's might be 29, 30. But anyway, he's knocking
for a
on
running back. That's tough.
He's knocking on that door, and so it becomes: do you give him 2 years, 3 years, knowing that the fall off could happen quick? Yeah. James hasn't had he's had injuries. He always misses a couple games every year, but I feel like recently he hasn't had anything too serious from what I can remember. It's not like a Todd Gurley who had major knee injuries and he was so dominant, and then all of a sudden his career was over.
Nothing.
At like 26.
Yeah.
I mean, he was done quick. So now James is 4 or 5 years older. You know what I mean? So it just becomes, do you pay that person? Budda Baker, it's becoming a position that they're not paying safeties that much anymore in the NFL. You're not seeing it very often. It's not a position they spend a lot of money on. So fan favorites though. So there's the balance. Right. What do you do? Are you paying the fan favorite, or are you continuing to build the right way with younger guys, new fan favorites that you can?
I think there's a balance.
I think there is a balance, and then that allows you freedom to make a trade and bring in maybe that one piece or two pieces that can get it, that is a veteran guy that can put you over the top. I look at, there's talks about Hassan Reddick right now. He used to play for us. He's now with the Jets. He got traded, didn't get a new contract, so he hasn't came to one practice.
Wow. We
are in desperate need of a pass rusher. He could solve a lot of problems. He has a good relationship with Coach Gannon. They were together in Philly. It's one of those things where that could solve a need, but now you have to trade draft capital, which it looks like Monty, our GM, has much love for draft capital. He does not like to just give it away. And then you have to give him a big contract. So we have the money now. So that going back to the just whole initial question of like, are they committed to winning? I think they are, but they're committed to winning by a different and what is known as more the better way to win, right? Like building that foundation, like we're saying, kind of the Patriot way, right? Building from your drafts, not making huge splashes. I feel like when the Patriots have made huge splashes in free agency, it's blown up on them. Like it just hasn't worked. When they built it the way the Cardinals are doing now, which I think is following their model, I think that's what led to a lot, obviously also having Tom Brady, but that led to a lot of their success.
Do you have any spots for travel for the remainder of the season?
So Buffalo, no, because Buffalo we're 3 weeks away from football and being in Buffalo. 70 degrees. It's going to be awesome. Like Arizona, it's still going to be 100, 115. But going up to Buffalo, it's going to be a great time. And then we do have openings so Buffalo, I will say, we have openings for a la carte. That is just open. It's limited for each of the parties. You're not going to get all the swag and all the stuff that comes in the packages, but you can get into the events. Experience. You can get into those experiences. It is a little more expensive for a single ticket to those events than if you bought in the package. So that's the reward of the packages, right? Sure. And so so that's Buffalo. Green Bay, sorry. Green Bay is open. You can still book that because that is until the middle of October. So we still have a little bit of time. Once we get about 30 days out, that's when we release a la carte and we cut off packages because at that point the hotel needs to know their inventory. Sure. It just becomes tough. Miami is end of October, so that one you really have till like October 1st to kind of book. for that, and then at that point we'll go to a la carte once again.
Awesome.
So yeah,
This has been awesome. I've wanted to talk to you about this for so long, and I really appreciate you coming out and making the time and sharing your story. I love how you can take something that you love and that is passionate to you, and that we all participate in, and you saw it as an opportunity to not only turn it into a business, but to make it an experience for individuals and who wouldn't be able to normally do that.
Yeah.
And I think that is phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Take us out. Give us a final thought. How can someone get a hold of you? Social medias, if they want to book a trip, what's the best way to do all that?
Yeah. So to get a hold of us, any of our social medias, Facebook, it's Birdgang Travel, Instagram at Birdgang Travel, YouTube is youtube.com Birdgang Travel Club, and that's the one misconception. So I came up with the name Birdgang Travel Club thinking, oh, it's a catchy name. Problem is people think it requires like a membership. There is no membership. You don't need to do any of that. It's not Costco. You don't need to show a card when you get in, anything like that. We do give you wristbands at the events. We got to make sure you're supposed to attend. But so you can go check us on those channels. If you want to book a package or a la carte, birdgangtravel.com. Also, we have some like travel merchandise and stuff like that on that website. But then we just launched birdgang.com, and birdgang.com is inspired gear. So like this Birdgang versus everybody shirt, right? And we have like 30 different shirts.
I like that hat.
So yeah, and these hats will be coming out very soon. These are probably going to be event specific merch.
Okay.
They won't be ones you get online, but you will be able to get them at our events. So
Birdgang.com.
Yes, birdgang.com for all the t-shirt designs and things like that. We do have an event. When is this coming out? Do you know?
Today.
Oh, sweet. Same day. You gotta like that. We do have an event this Sunday, the 25th, out at Gila River Resorts and Casinos Wild Horse Pass up in the Top Golf Swing Suites Bar. We're going to do a viewing party. It starts at 12:30 for the Cardinals-Broncos preseason games. It's the final preseason game. None of the starters are going to play. It's going to be a bunch of backups, but it is a good way for you to meet other fans that will be going on road games this season.
Nice.
So you don't have to be going with us. If you're just a Cardinal fan, want to come check it out, kind of meet everyone and say like, oh, maybe I'd want to do this someday. Cool. If you are going on road trips and you want to book a la carte, still come. We'll have a silent auction of some cool Cardinals memorabilia that you can get, some signed items of both historic players and also current players on the team. And then, yeah, we'll have that. We'll have food. We'll have all kinds of good stuff there. And it's in a casino. So after that, if you want to go and have some fun.
Can't go wrong with the casino.
Can't go wrong. But yeah, check us out, birdgangtravel.com or birdgang.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it.
I appreciate this. This was a lot of fun.
If you'd like to be featured on Casey's Corner, please like, subscribe, share this video. Thanks very much. Have a great day.